Cummins, who is our Community Inclusion Director at Alternative Federal Credit Union, and Laura Enoch, our publisher here at CU Content. This is just a part of something that we like to do for our credit unions and basically feature someone who is doing something really great for their community or has a great campaign going on that was successful for them. Today, Joe is going to speak to us about, what he does at Alternative Federal Credit Union. So Joe, let's start there and just kind of talk to us about what you're doing at the credit union today. And then we'll just take it from there.
That's such a big question.
A general overview, and then we could just deep dive from there with all the great things you're doing.
It's so complex, Nicole, because we just won the Louise Herring Service Award from the New York State Credit Union League. And that was about, what I had written about was our outreach program, which, because we're a community development financial institution, our mission is to serve people with low income or those who have been marginalized by the financial industry. So those are not people that come to the credit union asking for help. They don't believe they can really get help. And because they've been stigmatized by, poor credit or other credit issues, they just, all they have available to them are predatory lenders. So that's just what they're used to using, and they just deal with that. So my job is to go out into the community and find these people, which means going to churches, barbershops, community events, to businesses, and just try to find the people. And, when I start talking to them, they don't believe me because they're absolutely suspicious. Their families have a history of poor experiences with financial institutions. And they know if someone is coming to them, they're trying to take advantage of them. So that's what I'm up against. So it really takes a lot of patience and really a lot of listening to what's going on before I can talk about what our services are and why we're different. I mean, there are less than 400 CDFI certified credit unions in the whole country. So nobody really knows about them, not even, the local politicians that I speak to. They don't know what we can do.
That's a huge challenge, Joe. I mean, that is a huge challenge, just not to have the trust of the people that you're trying to help. Can you tell us a little bit about how you do that? Because I think even for credit unions that are not community development, there is a concept of the unbanked or the underbanked, and there's a lack of trust, especially around new immigrants who may come from countries where you really can't trust the financial institutions. And like you say, they may have gone to the predatory lenders. Can you tell us a little bit about how you build trust if you're the one doing the outreach?
I just go to the same places over and over again and just listen to people and talk to them. It's really a person-to-person interaction that has to happen because they just don't buy it. We were in a situation where, I was going to this barbershop and, ultimately he mentioned that, his building was for sale and he was afraid he was going to get kicked out after 16 years. And he didn't know what he was going to do. So, we just kept talking about what the situation was. And we ended up helping him buy the building from the landlord. So now he owns 3 apartments. He now leases but that didn't, right? It didn't occur to him because, his experience with his dreams are limited, given the experiences and the circumstances that he's under. He's not used to getting help by anybody. People that we speak to who are, entrepreneurs, how do they get access to capital? They get it because they borrow it from their family. They ask their friends, their family, they scrape together, and then they have to make a choice between, do we pay the electric bill or do I invest in my business? And these are the stresses that these folks are under. And unfortunately, right, they're brilliant because they know how to do amazing things, but they're just hampered by this lack of access to capital just because they've been marginalized. And so by opening that up, all of a sudden we take this weight off their shoulders and say, no, we can get you access to capital. We want to support what you're doing. We want to support your genius. And, it's not your fault, really. I mean, that's what a lot of times when I'm speaking to people is that they're blaming themselves because of the myth of the American dream here. They all work really hard and they struggle providing for their families, right? But they blame themselves because they're taught this lesson that if they work really hard, they should be able to have a middle-class lifestyle, but that's not the case.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, that is just, I think all credit unions like to think that this is where they could be going or what they could be doing, but you're really making a difference. How long have you been doing this, Joe?
Well, I started with the credit union 23 years ago as a financial educator. And I did that for 2 decades. And then when the pandemic hit, that all stopped. And so when we came back and we refocused on how we were going to, engage in our mission, this is what happened. I think I told Nicole this. So after the pandemic, we closed down our marketing department because in the history of the credit union, we really didn't communicate very well to the people in our target demographic, the people that we wanted to reach, who were the people that didn't believe we could help them. For whatever it is, the marketing people that we would hire did marketing things, and we ended up, really just competing with other credit unions, but we don't really compete with them because they don't actually want the membership that we have. They actually send people to us. They go to alternatives because they might help you. So I was given the task of, well, you know how to talk to the people that we want to serve. You take over marketing, right? And what's funny is, like, I still keep track of my expenses on pencil and paper here. So all of a sudden I have to deal with social media and websites. And, it's taken me, this was last, a year and a half ago, I would say. So it's been a slow transition to understand this technology stuff that I'm dealing with. But the goal of it, and what you asked me what I'm doing, is trying to change our communication style so that we're actually talking to the people that we want to serve.
Cool. How cool is that? So you were brave enough to just take this on, just face it and learn all this new technology and things like that. Right.
So, one of my biggest struggles was working with marketing people, and they have a certain way of doing things. And I'm like, no, but you see, our clients they won't call us. They won't respond to an ad. They won't respond to the radio because anything that's advertised to them, they really think that assume that it's predatory, assume that they're just going to be taken advantage of. It's funny. Another story so this is how I meet people. I was in a recording studio, and sitting on a couch, and there's a man who walked in there, and I was talking to him. He was a bus driver, and we just started talking, and he ended up having close to 25% car loan. But we were talking about him starting his business, but he couldn't. He just didn't have enough money to start his business. But all this money was going to his car loan. So I'm like, well, let's get rid of that immediately. So he applies. I help him on his phone, right? We're doing this. I'm sitting next to him on a couch, and we're applying for a loan on his phone. And then, a few days later, one of the loan officers calls me up, and she says, Joe, he's also got a private loan, a personal loan for, find out what the interest rate is on it. So I call him back up and I ask him about that. And it was over 30% on that personal loan. So Carol, our loan officer, says, you tell him I'm going to take that and I'm going to roll it into the car loan at 7.25%.
Wow.
And so, I did the math on that, and that would save him $4,600 in interest payments, that he was paying to these predatory lenders. Now, when I told him this, right, he doesn't believe it. He doesn't believe we're going to help him. And, he tells his wife, and, his wife says, that's not true. These people don't help us. So, we did it. We did it. And, I just can't, I can't express the look on people's faces because they're just blank. I'll tell you this story.
You're touching on something important. It's relationship building and trust. And I think that that's at the core of what every marketer should really learn and understand, building trust, even if it is, I think, Joe, you have an advantage of, going out into the community and talking to people and learning about who they are and, what their needs are, how they need help. And I think sometimes going back to basics like that and having those very simple not simple, but hard conversations and taking a simple approach, such as just having a face-to-face conversation with them, helps you learn about who they are, what they need from you, and then how the credit union can go back and help. And that just only will be able to streamline your marketing efforts even more by putting the time and energy into resources that you could use to reach these people. So it just is almost, dare I say, a back to basics approach of building relationships with people through face-to-face conversation and building their trust that way.
So yes, it's more than basics, Nicole. And I have an answer to your question. This is really what happens is that if you're talking to someone on the couch, you usually don't ask them about what rate of car loan they have. But so my degree's in counseling, so I'm very focused on behavior change, and I don't really have time to waste. I need to know what's going on. So I'm telling you, I ask everyone what their car loan rate is, and if they don't know, I ask them to find out. If I'm in the elevator and I'm next to the UPS man is in there, I ask him how his savings, if he's saving, how that's working out. I know that that's not normal because we're not taught, it's taboo to talk about money with people. You don't talk about your family. So, again, 20 years of talking about people's financial lives, when I don't have a lot of time to wait, I have to know now. I need to know if you're struggling now so that I know how I can help you. So that's just something that I've developed a comfort with. If you're at the checkout counter when I'm getting my groceries, how's your savings going? Are you making enough money? Are you able to save? Do you have any loans? So I think that's really the outreach tactic, is that to be super direct and not be afraid to ask people, because I know if they have a high interest rate, I can usually help them.
How do people respond to that? Because that's like a little scary to me that, if somebody approached me and says, how are you doing financially? What's the rate on your auto loan? I'd be like, wait a minute,
That's true. But if not, so I talk to a lot of social service agencies, and when I say, a lot of your clients have close to 25% car loans, and like, really? They do? Right? These are the client managers, but they don't talk about finances with their clients. They might say, you should save, or you should, you need to save this much, but they don't get into they have no idea. So I think, again, it's just people, I think, just get a sense that I'm asking because I actually care, because it's super important to me.
So, Joe, talk about, if you could, the counseling groups that you put together and how you have helped people from those counseling groups.
Yeah, don't call it counseling. It was,
I'm sorry.
It was a financial education course that I was asked to create when I got started. So, because my background is in counseling, I knew that money issues weren't about the math. The math is pretty simple, addition and subtraction. But what was troubling was the emotions behind it. And the more I spoke to people, the more I felt that, that's what it was. There was shame involved, there was embarrassment. And these were stopping people from changing their behavior. Because if if it was logical, it would just be, I'll just stop doing this and I'll start doing this. But that's not the case. So what I learned really quickly, I knew again that if I just told people what to do, they weren't going to do it. No one is going to listen to me. So we started the class, and we would just have a group setting. So everyone would sit in a circle. And again, I don't have time to waste. So I would have people draw pictures. We would start the first class with crayons, and everyone would draw their financial situation. And then they would hold it up and they would talk about it. Now I knew this was easy because once you put your problem outside of your head, it's exterior and it's easier to talk about. So people would have these pictures, and I can actually share one right now.
Love to see it. That is such a cool concept. And while you're sharing that, Joe, I just want to say that a lot of financial education courses we know don't work, but your approach, where I know you're not calling it counseling, but it sounds almost like group therapy, that works. That is such a great twist on financial education.
So this was someone who he wrote, so his first day of class, right? Everyone is nervous because they're not used to talk about money, even with their family, right? But now they're in a room full of strangers. And I talk about my finances. I mean, that's the first thing I do. And then I have a picture too. So we share our pictures. This was one young man who drew this picture. He said, I throw all my money in the trash, and then we go through, it's 7 sessions that we had. And the first thing that happens, right, is that after that first class, everyone goes around the room and shares their picture and their story. I ask for feedback. They write feedback at the end of class. And every time for 20 years, same thing. I thought I was all alone. I thought I was the only one who messed up my credit. It's incredible. Like, we're so isolated talking about money. And, I mentioned in class, I said, if you want to cook or bake, you usually know someone you can call and say, oh, how do I make this pie? How do I cook this chicken? You don't have a problem with that, or if your car is broken, you're like, oh, I'll call this person, they know about cars. But when your money system is broken, you don't call anybody. You don't talk to anyone. You don't talk to your partner. You don't talk to your family. You just suffer in silence. So I learned real fast that this class relieved people.
I love it. I love that, Joe. That is so awesome.
And then they get drawn to each other, right? And then they want to help each other. So this class, they start to interact with each other. So someone will stand up and they'll go, I gave up cable television for the first time, and I've got $60 in my savings account. And then a couple of weeks later, someone will go, I gave up cable, right? They're learning from each other. They're sharing and they're working. And this is how, this is just, working as a community. It's about the community and supporting each other. And that's what allows for behavior change.
So it sounds to me, Joe, like, and I'm feeling this, your authenticity, you're so genuine. And I think that's how you're reaching people. But I'm going to say you don't have to be a community development financial institution to be able to do this. I think everyone wants to help others clearly not to the degree that you're doing it, and maybe not everybody's ready to do the work, because actually going door to door, going to barbershops, going to recording studios and just sitting down with people, that takes a lot. That's not a small thing. But and even just having the personality to be able to approach someone in an elevator and say, hey, and we know in the United States it's completely acceptable to speak about other things, but not money. We don't talk about money, but to be able to approach people and say, what's your interest rate on an auto loan, and to hear they have a 25% auto loan interest rate. When you first said 25%, I thought you meant that was the degree that they had financed, or they had to make a 25% down payment. 25% interest rate. That's wild. So you're not afraid to ask the questions, and you're getting response from people because I think they sense your authenticity and your desire to help them. But I like this whole idea of your approach to financial education where it's more personal. You're asking them to draw pictures. Can you share a little bit more about that? That's just these are great stories you're sharing with us.
Sure. So like I said, over time, it's really, it's a conversation. We have topics and so on every week, but it's really getting people to feel comfortable talking about money. And, one of the things I started to see right away when couples came to the class, they would come back one day holding hands and said, we spent 20 minutes talking about our finances for the first time ever. You could see how valuable that was. Or someone would come and say, I spoke to my mother or my father, right? And so having these conversations in the classroom setting allowed the people a language to then go talk to their family and friends. And that's where it was really valuable. And then people started to change their behavior. And someone mentioned they were going to their friend's house. Their friend was making them dinner, and they would share what they learned in the class, right? There are these exchanges. But this is how people learn. This is how people grow.
You're clearly accomplishing a lot here, Joe. If you can talk a little bit about the results that you're seeing. I mean, clearly these heartwarming stories speak for themselves, but I know in a lot of financial institutions, banks and credit unions, they need to show the bottom line. Are you seeing that more people are using the credit union? Is there a word of mouth that's going on? And my big question for you is, are you getting coverage, publicity coverage? Are you sending out press releases? Is the press on your back to hear these stories and to run these as human interest stories locally?
Okay, let me start.
Sorry, I asked too much.
Going back to the pictures, because
I'm fascinated with what you're telling us here.
Okay, so this is the gentleman who drew this. I don't know if you can see the house he drew back here, but he came back, the last class, he said he's got this, he throws money in his savings now. He still throws money in his trash can, but he's also saving for a house. And that's become more important to him than that big trash can he had before.
Beautiful.
Oops, okay. We have to share each one. This one. Okay, this was someone who, this was his first picture, right? He was a single father, and he just said money comes in and money goes out, and that was his experience with money. And so he went through this class, started hearing other people's stories, started developing some financial goals himself, and then on the last class he drew this. You can't see the new one yet. I have to stop and then start it again.
No, we see it. We see it. This is great. Welcome home. Credit score.
Oh, yeah, great. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Right. So imagine going from that face that had no emotion, right, around money. And now he realized he could have a home. And I mean, these are people that are, not high earners. This is someone who worked in a community center. We've had someone that was, waited tables. I mean, these are people that we get into homes.
Very impressive.
I'll show you one more. One of my other is this one. So this is someone who said every day they wake up to pay their bills. I imagine that's what you think about every day when you wake up, start your day. I'm only getting up to pay my bills. That's what he said. And then after the class was over, he had this one. He drew this. I mean, look at the difference. From being in bed to standing up, wearing armor with a sword, he had control over his money. He had control over the bills. So, when you said what's the success? I see it just simply getting people to start talking about money, eliminating the feelings of being alone and struggling alone, that people want to help. So I know that if I can find out, what their situation is, that they haven't been allowed. I'm telling you, people want to talk about it. So when you said, people are uncomfortable, or you would be uncomfortable, I have not yet to have someone be angry with me. What is the success? Is that we give people an opportunity, give them the opportunity to be owners, not renters, give them an opportunity to start their dream businesses, to, acknowledge their brilliance and their expertise, and give them opportunities that people will pay you back.
Cool. Super, super cool. And the creativity that came out of those drawings just blows my mind. And you're giving them permission to see that they're not alone, and there are steps that they can take to get more control of their finances.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking people on disability, people on public assistance. They're like, you can't help me because I don't make enough money. And then I will ask them, I'll go, when the class is over, I'll go, did you, was this helpful? Did you get anything? Like, yeah, I found some things I could do. So, no one has said this was a waste of my time, no matter what income level they're in. I mean, one of the interesting parts of the class was that, we have people with 6-figure incomes and people, on public assistance, all in the same class together, wow. Right? And what you get to see is that it doesn't matter what the income is, because people say, oh, if I earned more money, if I doubled my salary, but you watch in the class in real time, someone say to you, I don't have any money, I've got bills.
I believe it, Joe, because when you say, it's for people who are struggling low income, everyone is struggling no matter what their income level is. So it really is a lot of the internal work that has to be done. I've long believed that. So if you were to advise a credit union that wanted to do, or I would imagine many credit unions watching this will be interested in doing something like what you're doing, what would your advice to them be? I know you have a lot to say. I know there's a lot, but keep in mind that most people don't have.
Because it's not cost effective. It's I mean, my whole life of service has not been cost effective. When I used to do adult education. So I would go to people's homes, and they would and I would work with the parent. And then when I'm working with a parent to get their GED, what happens is that their kid stops watching TV, comes up to the kitchen table and opens up her homework book because she watches her mom. I mean, but that program, it wasn't cost effective to send me to people's homes. It was super effective, not cost effective. What this kind of program doesn't, I mean, how many people can we have in a class? We have 20 people in our class, and we used to run it before the pandemic. We would run it 4 times a year. It's not serving a lot of people. I mean, over 2 decades I have, and I still run into people. A lot of people in Ithaca have already taken the class, so they all know about it and they all refer their friends to it. But it's not cost effective. So, and yes, I do it. I'm just passionate about results, I think. So when I'm told that, this is not cost effective, you have to reach more people, I'm like, well, we're going to be less effective. If you want to actually help people, this is how you do it. I can tell you how to do it. But it requires, we know this in education, right? Small classrooms are more effective than large classrooms. But what do? You get classrooms of 25, 30 kids in them. So I guess if you wanted to set aside a budget to really focus on helping people, it has to be small. It has to be one-on-one interaction. I mean, that's just a taboo word. One-on-one, going, visiting businesses, walking into stores, walking into businesses and talking one-on-one, sitting on a couch with someone to help them fill out a form on their phone. This is all time-consuming.
Can I make a suggestion, Joe? Because I could see where other credit unions, I mean, obviously, they don't have your dedication. I don't know if anybody has your authenticity and can be as genuine as you are, but I could see this working for a credit union, whether they're, a CDFI or not. I can see it working for a credit union where they would bring on interns for the summer to work the streets in the summer, give them credit union jackets, let them go door to door, speak to people, and bring them into the credit union that way. I can also see a place where, we know the 80-20 principle is that 80% of the financial issues are going to be with 20% of your membership, or, maybe different for a community development financial institution. But there's definitely there's a percentage of people that will benefit most, that will be most open to having conversations like this. If a credit union would reach out to the lowest income members, or to the members that keep coming back to refinance the same loans, the ones that are clearly struggling, and do a group like this, I could imagine where there would be a lot of word of mouth from that. I could imagine getting PR coverage. And I could also imagine where you could have a program where any person who benefited from this becomes an ambassador of your program. And that person then goes and reaches out to people. And let's say they would meet one person a week or something like that, speak to one person or 3 people a week about their finances, the same way you do, where you're training them in, and they're able to, you can create a whole huge network of people that are going out and helping others. You were helped by the credit union. Here's how you can continue the chain and help others. Really, what you're doing is very special. I don't think most people are doing it, but I would like us all to learn from you. So I'm seeing this as a challenge. I'm taking this as a challenge, and I want to know how you'll feel if I can prove you wrong, that there are credit unions out there that want to do this. And once they learn from somebody as high level as you, who's actually doing this for the best reasons possible, I want to see if we can get, and I'm going to set myself a challenge of 10 credit unions who are going to learn from you, and at least maybe not to the degree that you're doing it, but in some small way, put something that they learned from watching this video, something that they can take from it and put it into practice. And if we can get back to you with 10 credit unions that have done it, will you feel that you've made an even bigger difference? Because now you're not just helping individuals, you're helping at a higher level other credit unions, maybe even other community banks, going out after people and following in your footsteps and creating the system you've created at your credit union.
Absolutely. I mean, my job is to eliminate my job. Like, we shouldn't need CDFIs. Like, I would rather these, right? The credit unions around me, they're 40 times larger than us, like billion-dollar credit unions. Of course, they could do a lot more if they wanted to. We're tiny. And we do the best we can. One thing that I did was with that, I mentioned the savings programs. I started, so when I started at the credit union, they're like, oh, our high school doesn't teach financial education. You need to talk to seniors, or they're graduating, they don't know how to manage money. And when I went to talk to them, they were like, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm gonna make plenty of money. I'm gonna be an athlete. I'm gonna be a musician, whatever, rock star, all these things. So I stopped talking to them, and I went and talked to smaller children, and they're like, oh, I spend 50 cents a day on snack. I'd love to save my money. So then I just opened up a savings program in every elementary school in the district. And then I offered children on free or reduced lunch, I offered them a 10% savings account, because I was hearing from single parents that they felt guilty that they couldn't save for their child's education. Now, a single parent should not feel guilty about anything because they do everything. So I'm like, well, we got to fix this. So I said, I'll give you 10% on up to $100 a year. You save $2 a week. We're going to teach a savings habit to your child, because they're going to bring that money into school every week and they're going to remember it. And our CFO at the time, he said, no one's going to do this. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing it. And we ended up having an 80% success rate. 80% of those parents were saving for their kids' education.
Wow.
And, the stories that I would hear from these parents, like because other adults would say, someone in kindergarten, if they saved this $100 a year, they would have $2,000 when they graduated. And people would say to me, well, that's not enough for college. But when you actually ask the parents, they're like, well, I had nothing. My parents gave me nothing when I graduated, but my kid is going to have $1,000 to $2,000. And that made them feel good about themselves. And that's all I cared about. I just wanted them to feel good. And obviously I thought, as the kid got older, they would save more than that. But it was just to get that savings habit started, because when I started teaching the adult class, they all said to me, I never started a savings habit. I graduated from high school or graduated from college, got a job, and started earning and spending. So I'm like, it's the savings habit that's the problem, not any other complicated formula or anything about budgeting. It's just they didn't save. So when we started these savings programs in elementary school, with kindergarten students, their faces were like this big, and they would come up, they wouldn't speak, they would just hand their money, pour their change on it. I started hearing stories of children who would cry if they forgot their savings deposit for that week. So, one school had a bowl of pennies in the office. So if a kid forgot, they could just go and get the pennies. Or, a parent telling me that their daughter only gets herself ready on credit union day, like puts her dress out and makes her meal, because she knows it's a real responsibility. It's a real thing that she's able to participate in. And, money is often used as control by parents. So the kids know this. They're way smarter than we think they are. So now giving a child access to money and feeling control of it. So you start to see students coming in, they're saving for their camp in the summer. They're saving for, college. They all say, this is my college money, right? They're little kids. They're saying, this is my college money.
Yeah, and it just gives them the mindset of saving, which I think you can't even put a price tag on that. So it's not the amount. It's like you're saying they graduate with $1,000. Well, first of all, that's $1,000 they wouldn't have had otherwise, but the real gift of the $1,000 is not what that money can do educationally. It's a sense of, I'm saving for my education. I have a future. I can do this. And even if that means that they're coming back to the credit union for college loans, or they're applying for grants or whatever it is, they have that dream. And that dream now has a practical form that is dollars in the bank. And it doesn't really matter how many dollars that is. I believe in this very much. I think that's awesome.
Right. And there's also a study showing that if someone has a college account between $1 and $500, they're 6 times more likely to go to college. So that's why I said, let's just get this set up and
beautiful
and start this out. Now, and the other thing is that I had a teacher tell me that a student came up to her and said, Mrs. Lee, I can't save this week because my mom had to buy food, but I'm going to save next week. Right. So the concept of that I'm always going to be poor isn't there anymore. There is still hope, right? When the older students, they would come to me and they would pull their pockets out and show me, I'm broke. I got no money. And teachers would do that too. I'm broke. So that mindset, totally unhelpful. Unhelpful. The hope is gone. So the children had the hope and they started savings habits.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Joe. This has been enlightening. This has been inspiring, and keep doing the good stuff you're doing for the community. This is awesome. And I do hope other people learn from you, and we're going to see more of this.
Okay. Yeah. The other question was who cares? Nobody. I don't get interviews. This is the first time I've done this. That's why I was nervous. And I asked Nicole, because I didn't know what to wear. I didn't know how to look. My lighting is whacked.
The second we got off the phone, I called Laura right away. I said, we have a case study here. So this is definitely important for people to hear, to listen to. And, the first thing that Laura said to me was, when Laura first started FCU Content, she said, our slogan was people helping people, right? So we're trying to help credit unions help their community. So I think we're all here for the same mission, the same idea. I think credit unions and banks, community banks also are just there to serve their community and to help. And, you said something where we're not at competition with other credit unions. And that's something that resonates with me, because it's so refreshing to hear that we're just here for the community. We're here to help. We're here to serve. And I think if we all shifted our mentality, if we shifted, our way of thinking in so many ways. I mean, it's not just finances and how we think about our finances, it's how we can help each other, how we can help our community. I think we'd all be a lot better off, to be honest with you.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. We really appreciate it. You're doing good stuff. It was great speaking with you. And we'll be in touch.
Okay. Thanks, Laura. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.